The fluorescent lights of Save Mart buzzed overhead as Marcus Chen stood frozen in the cereal aisle, his 6-year-old daughter Maya tugging at his sleeve. But he wasn't looking at breakfast options anymore. His attention had shifted entirely to the commotion, erupting near the store's entrance, where a security guard loomed over a wheelchair, and inside that wheelchair sat a girl who couldn't have been more than 16. Her face streaked with tears, her hands trembling as she tried to speak, through sobs that made her whole body shake. "I didn't take anything," the girl kept saying, her voice breaking. "Please, I didn't." Marcus felt his heart clench. He'd seen that look before, that mixture of fear and helplessness. The desperation of someone who knows the truth but can't make anyone listen. It was the same look his late wife had worn in the hospital when the doctors stopped believing her pain was real, when they dismissed her symptoms until it was too late. He'd sworn after Sarah died that he'd never stand by and watch someone be treated as less than human. Never let fear or indifference win when he had the power to act. The security guard, a heavy-set man with a face flushed red with either anger or exertion, was rifling through a small backpack that hung from the back of the wheelchair. "We got you on camera, sweetheart," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Saw you stuffing merchandise in your bag. Think being in that chair makes you special. Think we won't check? Daddy, why is that man being mean?" Maya whispered, her brown eyes wide with concern. Marcus squeezed his daughter's hand. "Stay right here, baby. Don't move." He approached the scene with measured steps, his mind already racing through what he was witnessing. The girl in the wheelchair wore clothes that had seen better days. A faded jacket with a broken zipper, jeans that were too short for her legs, which rested motionless on the footrests. Her wheelchair itself looked old, the kind you might find at a thrift store or receive from a medical charity, with duct tape holding together one of the armrests. Everything about her screamed struggle, screamed poverty, screamed vulnerability. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "What's going on here?" The security guard barely glanced at him. "Store business. Move along." "I'm a customer in this store," Marcus replied, standing his ground. "And I'm watching you harass a minor, so I'm making it my business." The girl looked up at him, and Marcus saw something that made his chest ache. Hope, just a flicker of it, like a candle flame in the wind, as if a stranger's intervention might be the miracle she needed. "She was shoplifting," the guard said, more forcefully now. "We have her on video taking items off the shelf." "Taking items off the shelf isn't the same as shoplifting," Marcus pointed out. "Did you see her leave the store without paying? She put things in her bag." "I was going to pay," the girl said, her voice small. "I always put my groceries in my bag while I shop because I can't push a cart and my wheelchair at the same time. I can't hold things on my lap because I don't have good balance. I've shopped here before. They know me." Marcus looked at the guard. "Is that true? Is she a regular customer?" The guard shifted uncomfortably. "I've never seen her before." "I come every week," the girl insisted. "I buy food for my dad and me. We live 2 blocks away on Maple Street." A small crowd had gathered now, other shoppers pausing to watch the drama unfold. Marcus could see them whispering, some filming on their phones, others shaking their heads. He knew how this looked. A disabled girl in worn clothes, accused of stealing. It was the kind of story that would either end in quiet injustice or public outrage, depending on who spoke up. "What's your name?" Marcus asked gently, crouching down to be at eye level with her. "Emma," she said softly. "Emma Rodriguez." "Okay, Emma, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at what's in your bag together, and you're going to tell me what you were planning to buy. Then we're going to go to the register together, and you're going to pay for it. And this whole misunderstanding is going to be resolved. Does that sound fair?" Emma nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. The security guard started to protest, but Marcus cut him off. "Unless you have actual evidence that she attempted to leave the store without paying, you're detaining her based on assumptions. I'm guessing your company has policies about that. And I'm guessing they wouldn't love the video that's being taken right now going viral." The guard's eyes darted to the phones pointed in their direction, and his face went even redder. Marcus helped Emma go through her backpack. Inside were 3 cans of soup, a loaf of bread, a small container of peanut butter and a carton of eggs. Basic groceries. The kind of food you buy when you're stretching every dollar. The total couldn't have been more than $15. "I have money," Emma said, pulling out a small, worn wallet from her jacket pocket. Inside were a few crumpled bills and some coins. "I was going to pay. I always pay." Something about the way she said it, with such earnest dignity, made Marcus's throat tight. This was a kid who was doing her best, taking care of business, trying to live her life with whatever independence her circumstances allowed. And she'd been humiliated for it. "I believe you," Marcus said. "Let's go pay for these together." As they made their way to the register, Maya had followed and now walked beside Emma's wheelchair. "I like your wheels," she said with the easy friendliness of childhood. "They're shiny." Emma managed a small smile. "Thanks. They're old, but they work." At the checkout, Marcus watched Emma count out her money carefully, her hands still shaking slightly. She had just enough to cover the groceries with 37 cents left over. As the cashier, an older woman with kind eyes, bagged her items, she leaned over and whispered, "I'm sorry about what happened. Emma, I know you're a good kid. I've checked you out before." "Why didn't you say something?" Marcus asked, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. The cashier looked uncomfortable. "He's security. I didn't think it was my place." Marcus bit back the response he wanted to give. Instead, he turned to Emma. "Do you need a ride home?" "I have a car." Emma hesitated, clearly torn between accepting help and maintaining her independence. "It's only 2 blocks. I can manage." "I know you can," Marcus said gently. "But it's getting dark, and you've had a rough time. Let me help, please." After a moment, Emma nodded. Getting Emma and her wheelchair into Marcus's SUV took some maneuvering, but they managed. Maya chatted away in the back seat, asking Emma about school and her favorite colors and whether she liked unicorns, blissfully unaware of the tension her father still felt simmering in his chest. The neighborhood Emma directed them to was one Marcus knew was struggling. Houses with peeling paint, yards that needed tending, cars that had seen better decades. Emma pointed to a small, neat house that stood out for being well-maintained despite its age. "My dad works really hard to keep it nice," Emma said, as if reading Marcus's thoughts. "He says just because we don't have much money doesn't mean we can't have pride." As Marcus helped Emma out of the car and unfolded her wheelchair, the front door opened. A man emerged, tall and thin, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that went wide with concern when he saw his daughter.
"Emma, I was getting worried."
"You're later than usual." He hurried down the ramp that led from the porch, then stopped when he saw Marcus and Maya. "Who?" "There was a problem at the store, Dad," Emma said quietly. "But this man helped me." Marcus extended his hand. "Marcus Chen. There was a misunderstanding at Save Mart. Emma's fine, but she was upset, so I offered to drive her home." The man, who introduced himself as James Rodriguez, looked between his daughter and Marcus with an expression that was hard to read. What kind of misunderstanding? As Emma explained what had happened, Marcus watched James's face cycle through anger, hurt, and something else. Something that looked almost like resignation, as if this was just one more indignity in a long line of them. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Mija," James said softly, stroking his daughter's hair. "And thank you," he said to Marcus, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for standing up for her when you didn't have to." "Anyone should have," Marcus replied. "I just couldn't walk away." James invited them in for coffee, which Marcus almost declined before seeing the look in the other man's eyes. This wasn't just politeness. This was something deeper, a need to express gratitude, to connect with someone who had shown his daughter kindness. The inside of the house was modest but immaculate, filled with photographs and books. As Maya and Emma settled in to watch cartoons, James made coffee in a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and told Marcus his story. He'd been an architect once, he explained, with a successful firm in Seattle. Then Emma had been in a car accident when she was 12. The same accident that had killed her mother. Emma had survived but lost the use of her legs. James had thrown himself into her care, into experimental treatments and therapies, spending everything he had. When the money ran out and the medical bills didn't stop, He'd lost the firm, lost their home, lost everything except Emma. "We moved here 3 years ago to be near her physical therapist," James said, staring into his coffee. "I do freelance work when I can, architectural drawings for small projects. It's enough to keep us fed and housed, but not much more. Emma's tough, though, tougher than me sometimes. She insists on doing as much as she can for herself, including the grocery shopping." His voice cracked. "I should have been with her today." "She shouldn't have needed you to be," Marcus said firmly. "She should be able to shop without being treated like a criminal." They talked for over an hour, trading stories about single parenthood, about loss, about the daily challenge of being enough for a child, when you felt like you were barely holding it together yourself. Marcus found himself opening up about Sarah's death, about the guilt he still carried, about the fear that he wasn't doing right by Maya. When it was time to leave, Emma gave Maya a small stuffed bear she'd had on her bed. "For being nice to me," she said. "Are you sure?" Maya asked, clutching it. "I'm sure. Friends share." In the car, Maya was quiet for a moment before asking, "Daddy, why was that man mean to Emma?" Marcus thought about how to answer, how to explain cruelty and prejudice to a 6-year-old. Sometimes people make unfair assumptions about others based on how they look or what they have. It's not right, but it happens. That's why we always have to treat everyone with kindness and stand up when we see someone being treated badly, like you did today. Like I tried to do today. The incident might have ended there. Just a brief intersection of lives. A moment of kindness in a hard world. But 3 days later, Marcus received a phone call at work. "Mr. Chen, this is Robert Caldwell from Caldwell Industries. I'm calling about Emma Rodriguez." Marcus's heart sank. Had the store pressed charges after all? "Yes, I understand you helped my daughter when she was in distress at a supermarket last Saturday." Marcus's mind reeled. "Your daughter?" "James Rodriguez is my son-in-law, or was. It's complicated. He and my daughter Maria were separated when she died, largely because of my interference. I made a lot of mistakes, Mr. Chen. I didn't approve of James, thought he wasn't good enough for Maria, that his artistic career was frivolous. When the accident happened and James spent everything on Emma's care, I offered to help, but only if he agreed to certain conditions. Conditions about how Emma should be raised. He refused. We haven't spoken in 3 years. I don't understand why you're calling me." "Because Emma mentioned what happened to one of her therapists, who mentioned it to someone else, and it eventually got back to me. I had my assistant look into it, and multiple people confirmed your story. You stood up for a child you didn't know, expected nothing in return. That got me thinking about the kind of man who does that versus the kind of man I've been." There was a long pause. "I'm worth about $40 million. Mr. Chen, my granddaughter has been living in poverty while I nursed my pride. That ends now. Mr. Caldwell, I need to know something. James, is he a good father? Be honest." Marcus didn't hesitate. "He's one of the best fathers I've ever met. He gave up everything for Emma, everything. And he did it without bitterness, without regret. He loves her more than anything in this world." He heard what sounded like a sob on the other end of the line. "Thank you for telling me that. And thank you for what you did for Emma. You gave an old fool a wake-up call he desperately needed." 2 weeks later, Marcus received an invitation to Emma's 16th birthday party. When he and Maya arrived at the address, he was shocked to find it was the Rodriguez house, but transformed. A new ramp, fresh paint, landscaped yard. Inside, Emma was beaming in her new wheelchair. Top of the line, surrounded by friends and family, including an older man who could only be Robert Caldwell. James pulled Marcus aside. "He came to see us," he said, his eyes wet. Robert came and apologized. Really apologized. He's setting up a trust for Emma, paying for a new experimental treatment that might help her regain some mobility. And he gave me seed money to restart my firm. But more than that, he's trying to be a grandfather to Emma, to be family again. He gripped Marcus's shoulder. "None of this would have happened if you hadn't stood up for her that day. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world, and somehow you reminded him too." Marcus felt Maya hug his leg and looked down to see her playing with Emma, both girls laughing. "I just did what anyone should do. But most people don't. James said quietly. That's what makes it matter. As the party went on, Marcus found himself talking with Robert Caldwell, who shared his own journey of realization. How hearing about a stranger's kindness had shattered his justifications for staying away from his granddaughter. Pride is expensive, Robert said, watching Emma with tears in his eyes. I almost let it cost me everything that matters. You showed me what really matters, Mr. Chen, not by preaching, but by acting, by being who you are. Driving home that night, Maya asleep in the back seat, still clutching the stuffed bear Emma had given her, Marcus thought about the strange chain of events that had started with a simple choice to not walk away, to not mind his own business, to stand up when someone needed standing up for. He thought about Sarah, about the promise he'd made to live better after losing her, to be the kind of man who made the world softer for others. I hope I made you proud, he whispered to the darkness. And somehow, in the quiet of the car, with his daughter sleeping peacefully and the memory of Emma's smile fresh in his mind, he felt like maybe he had, maybe kindness, real kindness, the kind that costs you nothing but means everything. Maybe that was the point all along. Not the grand gestures or the headlines, but the simple, human choice to see someone in pain and refuse to look away.